I wasn't expecting it, but at least she had the decency to confront me and not screw around until I caught her. I really didn't know what to say. Was I mad? Yes. Was I confused? Yes. Was I going to try and stop her? No way. George, I am not being unreasonable. Go see a lawyer if you feel it is necessary. The only thing that I am asking for is you continue to pay for the kids' college education. Other than that, I want nothing but my clothing and jewelry. I just sat there holding the petition for divorce in my hands. I hadn't opened it or even looked at it. What was the point? Linda had already removed her belongings from the house and I hadn't even noticed. I wasn't saying anything, but she insisted on yakking away. She did that when she was nervous. She was trying her best to look calm and in control, but the steady stream of words flowing from her mouth betrayed her. I stared at the papers and smiled to myself. I think she noticed and started talking faster. As I stood up, I tossed the envelope on the coffee table. Just get out. I got the message. Goodbye. At least she shut up. She stammered a little as I walked to the kitchen to get a cold beer. Instead of finishing what she was going to say, my wife turned and walked out of the front door for the last time. 10 minutes later, as I was on the second bottle, I glanced at the package she left. It was simple and clean, as she said. She also included a power of attorney so that I could sell the house. We had just taken out a second mortgage to pay the college tuition for our 2 sons, Robert and Glenn. If I sold the house now, I wouldn't even make enough profit to pay for the realtor's commission. So what was it that brought 20 years of marriage to a screeching halt? An old flame. Cameron Wright was her first. Linda and Cameron were a steady couple for years before I even met her. She mentioned him often in the past, and a few of our mutual friends made comments about him over the years. I ignored it. He was an old boyfriend. So what? I know now that it was more than that. I must have been sitting for a long while because I noticed that the room started to get dark. I knocked over 3 empties as I reached over to click on the end table lamp. Then the doorbell rang. Damn it! Now what? I was talking to myself. George, I just found out what she did. Billy said I should come over and see if you were okay. It was Linda's sister, Grace. I always liked Grace. In fact, I liked her better than I liked Linda. I must have had too much to drink and I wasn't thinking straight. Billy was my best friend. I should have my back kicked for even thinking about his wife that way. I shook my head as if I had water in my ears, in a vain attempt to straighten out my logic senses. Grace took me by the arm and led me out to the kitchen. I resisted a little because she seemed to be treating me like an invalid. I didn't need any damn help. The fluorescent lighting hurt my eyes, but I just squinted it away. How many beers did I have? I got about half of the coffee down before I realized that Grace was not saying anything. Feeling better now, George? Can we talk now? Give me a minute. I have to take a leak. By the time I got back, she had topped off the cup. So, Grace, tell me about my loving wife and Cameron Wright. When did this all come about? Your stupid brother-in-law just found out about it this afternoon. Don't be too hard on yourself, George. I always thought that she was still carrying a torch for the even after you guys married. It would have been nice if you would have said something 20 years ago. Get real. There was no way that I was going to stick my nose into that. I was just hoping that over the years she would forget about him. The two of you seemed to get along so well. Grace, it was never as good as it looked. I realize now that most of the time, the relationship was more platonic than romantic. I tried and tried over the years, but I could never really warm her up. Flowers, candy, and jewelry never worked. We got along and all. In fact, we rarely had an argument. I think I understand why now. You covered it up pretty well. Zrinia, Grace Atvetala. Thanks. Can I have a few of those oatmeal cookies in the canister behind you? My stomach is screaming for something. So, tell me, sister-in-law, what motivated my wife to dump me? I don't know if you remember, but Cameron dropped out of high school and joined the Air Force. Right after that, you and Linda started dating. Cameron was Linda's first, if you know what I mean." I nodded and shrugged at the same time. A girl never forgets her first love. Anyhow, she was really pissed when he left. She wanted a family and kids. I guess you were the one who she picked to help her with that. I thought that she made a good choice. I had no idea that she was just using you until got back. Hell, I don't think she even knew that he was coming back." "So why is he back now?" I asked. "He finished 20 years in the Air Force and retired with the rank of major. Linda claims that he has a nice pension and several good executive positions lined up in the area to start his second career. She was telling me about this and actually sounded proud. She was gushing over this great military career that he had, as if she had been part of it. To be honest with you, George, it sounded a little sick." "So I assume that she is now living with him?" I asked. "He is renting a condo in Berkshire Heights until he can find a suitable home to buy in the area. Linda is now completely moved in with him." "How long has he been back?" I asked. "I am not sure, but I think for about 3 weeks. He called her as soon as he got into town." "So that means that stupid George has been a for that long?" I asked. "Looks that way?" "Sorry." Grace tried to fill my coffee cup again, but I motioned her away. "I don't need any more coffee. All I want now is a shower and a good night's sleep. Thanks for stopping by, Grace. Lock up and when you leave." My sister-in-law actually looked sad for me as I walked out of the room. I was glad that the boys were no longer at home. It would have been embarrassing for me to have to explain to them what happened. They would find out eventually, but I was hoping that I would have recovered my composure by that time so that I didn't look so pathetic. My career choice was not that ambitious, but I enjoyed my work. I was in charge of the produce section at one of the larger supermarkets in the area. The company had been trying to get me to take a manager's position for the last 10 years, but I didn't want the long hours and the heavy responsibility. It didn't matter anymore now. Bright and early the next morning, I called my district supervisor and informed him that I was now ready to move up. That afternoon, I was assigned to take over a new store about 10 miles from home. I spent 3 days training in Baltimore and then started on my job. In my spare time, I notified the boys of the marital situation, placed the house up for sale, and rearranged all of my credit card and banking accounts. Linda's car was in her name, but the insurance was under my policy, emphasis on the word ways. Getting a new store up and running required a lot of my time. I didn't mind because it kept me from thinking about my personal problems. The company had things pretty streamlined, so most of the difficulties that I had were easily resolved. Corporate had a few professional store openers stay with us for the first 2 weeks. That was a big help. They handled the training for most of the new store employees. Half of the people were experienced and transferred in from other stores in the area. I was comfortable with the job and with my ability to do it. In no time, things had settled down. Everything was under control and running smoothly, so I had time to start arranging my personal affairs. Since I was planning on getting a small apartment near the store, I started to get rid of everything at the house that I would no longer need. Most of it I just gave away. There were several agencies in the area that were willing to take almost anything that I was willing to separate with. Of course, the first thing to go was the marital bed. I got a lot of satisfaction out of disposing of the wedding pictures and the family photos. I did keep a small collection of pictures of the boys. Billy called and insisted that I come over to the house the next Sunday for a cookout. He promised me that Linda would not be there. He also wanted to bring me up to date on the status of Cameron Wright, a local war hero. It wasn't much of a cookout. Billy and Grace's 2 teenage daughters made an appearance, but quickly disappeared. Basically, it was just an opportunity for Billy and me to chat. Grace spent most of the afternoon keeping us in cold beer and cleaning up after Billy's cooking mess. "Okay, Billy. What do you know about Mr., or should I say, Major Wright?" "All I know, George, is what he is spreading around the Veterans of Foreign Wars Hall. Cameron and Linda have been coming in a couple of times a week. He is all grandstand and glad hand. The guys seem to eat it up, But I think they are just impressed because it is new blood. Hell, most of the guys that come in there are over 60. And what is my loving wife doing while he is crowing about? Linda usually just stands beside him and smiles. She seems proud to be with him. She never acted that way when we were out together. Hell, George, you ain't no big war hero. Billy couldn't help laughing when he said it, but I didn't find it funny. George, he wears a baseball cap with that major insignia embroidered on the front of it. He even has a tag on the front of his car with that gold oak leaf. He is doing his best to impress everyone that he was a ranking officer. Something didn't feel right about Major Wright. I finished a beer just as Grace arrived with a couple of fresh ones. Billy. Cameron never even finished high school. How did he get to be an officer? If I remember correctly, they did away with that old Mustang program years ago. To get a commission nowadays, you have to have a degree. How did that son of a blip get a college degree when he wasn't even smart enough to get a high school diploma? Good point. I don't have an answer. Did he actually join the VFW? Yes, he joined the first week he was back. Can you get a copy of his application for membership? No problem. Why? I just want to check a few things out. I'll have it for you next week. Well, about this time, Grace came out and told us to lighten up the conversation so she could be included. I don't remember what we ended up talking about, but a few hours later, I went home with a devious smile on my face. Things started out fine the next week. The paperwork for the divorce was started. I had 3 serious people looking at the house, and the realtor was optimistic. Everything was running smoothly at work until Thursday. She was waiting for me in my office when I arrived. Maria Sanchez was the supervisor on my midnight to 8 stocking crew. Maria was promoted and transferred to the new store from across town. All that I knew about her was that she was a hard worker. Everyone agreed that she deserved the promotion and the raise that came with it. If I lost Maria, I would have a small problem that I didn't want to deal with. Getting people to work the graveyard shift is difficult, and getting good ones was nearly impossible. I hope you are not here to complain about something, Mrs. Sanchez. She smiled, but seemed a little nervous. Not really a complaint, Mr. Templeton, but I need some help. Go ahead. I'll do what I can. I have 2 sons, aged 15 and 16. They both have part-time jobs after school. They have a school bus to catch at 7 a.m., but they are having a hard time making it. Some days when I get home after 8, they are still in bed. They are not lazy, just tired. I need to kickstart them in the morning, if you know what I mean. You want a raise so that they will not have to work? Number, not at all. They work to get their college money. They both do well in school, but I have to get them there. What are you expecting me to do? Help, I answered. I found it interesting that she wasn't being whiny. This was a no-nonsense woman that ran a tight crew, but was having a problem with her own kids. I snickered a little at the situation and was rewarded with a sharp retort. It is not funny, Mr. Templeton. If you can't come up with some way to help me, I'll just have to find another job. It is funny, Mrs. Sanchez. You supervise a group of people at night who would take every chance to screw off if they could. They don't, because they work for you, and you would not put up with it. How is it that you let 2 young boys take advantage of you? Where is their father when all of this is happening? I really pissed her off now. She started to get up with fire in her eyes. For a second, I was afraid that I might have lost her. You are an arrogant bastard, Mr. Templeton. Everyone said that you were smart and fair. It looks like they were wrong. I didn't come here to be insulted. Calm down and sit down. I have a possible solution. She sat back down, but did not look too happy about it. I am going to change your working shift. You will start at 11. That will give you time to get your inventory lineup ready for the night crew when they arrive at 12. You will work until 6, when the first of the day shift supervisors arrive. He will take over the tail end of your shift. You will get to go home in plenty of time to get your boys off to school and maybe even make them breakfast. That is good, except for one little problem. I need at least 38 scheduled hours in order to keep my health insurance. I can't afford to lose my insurance. She was right, but I wasn't done yet. Do you go to church, Mrs. Sanchez? Damn it. There you go again. You really know how to piss a person off. What the hell do my church attendance habits have to do with my job? You sure are hot-headed, Mrs. Sanchez. I would appreciate it if you would calm down a little until I am done. And stop calling me Mrs. Sanchez. I am not married. I guess you have a smart remark to say about that also. I was starting to get exasperated with the woman. I sighed, leaned back in my chair, and immediately fell over backward. For a moment, I was just looking at the ceiling. I was amazed at how cheap the light fixtures looked. I heard her giggle as she looked over the top of my desk. I was on my back like a little frog, and she was softly laughing at me. Her hand went to her mouth to cover up her smile. "Sorry," she muttered. I was embarrassed at my clumsiness, and she was amused at it. It was difficult composing myself as I got resettled. "If I can't call you Mrs. Sanchez, what do I call you?" "Maria. Just Maria." "Maria, I have 2 supervisors who are both Southern Baptists. Neither one of them will work on Sunday mornings, so I end up having to. I want you to work 6 to noon on Sunday. That will get you the extra hours, but that is unimportant anyhow." "It is important to me," she replied. "You pay extra for the family plan health insurance, is that right?" "Yes. For $80 a month, both of my boys are also covered." "Maria, I am going to make you salaried. That means that your boys will automatically be covered by your insurance. It also means that you will get another small raise. And it also means that I will not be eligible for overtime. Is that correct?" "Yes." She didn't say anything for a few moments. She was a striking woman. Her hair was dark, but not quite black. Her eyes, however, were black as coal. There did not appear to be an ounce of fat on her. In fact, she looked a little gaunt. I was trying to determine what type of figure she had hidden beneath her work clothes when she responded. "Okay, I'll take it. But I don't know anything about being a supervisor during the day. I never had to work with customers." "Don't worry about it. I will work the first 4 shifts with you. There is no way that you can screw it up." That was the start of my relationship with Maria Sanchez. It was stressful, to say the least, and at that point, I never would have expected that it would become serious. I had expected her to stay for 6 hours Sunday morning, but we ended up working until late that evening. She insisted on knowing everything that she was going to be responsible for. I didn't have anything better to do, and I enjoyed her company. The Sunday paper had a small article about a fundraiser at the local American Legion post. Major Cameron Wright had his picture taken in full uniform, standing with my loving wife. I can truthfully say that I had never seen her looking as proud as she did in that photo. You would have thought she herself had earned the damn medals. I didn't get back to Billy until Monday evening. Grace had called me at work and insisted that I come over for spaghetti. How could I refuse? Billy had a copy of Cameron's application to join the VFW and also a copy of his discharge papers. I told him about the picture in the Sunday paper, and he promised to get me the forms from the American Legion post also. Grace had overheard at the beauty shop that Cameron had applied for membership at the Liberty Keys Country Club. Linda and I tried to join once, but we were turned down. I didn't care. But Linda was crushed. Grace said it looked like Cameron's application was pretty much pre-approved. It was a slow week. I had already found a small apartment, and I usually went straight there after work and finished at least 3 beers, sometimes more. The rent included basic cable, so I wasn't completely bored. Next week, I will have my DSL internet connection. The week ended on a high note when I found an invitation on my desk for supper with Maria and her 2 sons. I already had her address and phone number, but she gave it to me anyway. It felt awkward, and it could very easily be construed as a violation of the company fraternization policy. Just in case, I called my boss in Baltimore and explained it to him. After getting his blessing, I felt a lot better about the whole situation. I bought a bottle of wine to take along, but I had no idea what to bring for the boys. I was a little anxious about meeting Maria's sons, but after they found out that I had 2 sons who were already in college, the evening got a lot better. Poor Maria found herself being left out of most of the conversations. I tried to include her several times, but she finally gave me a little grimace, as if to say that I shouldn't worry about it. She seemed pleased that I hit it off with Armin and Martin. The night ended all too quickly, and we never got to open the wine. That Sunday, I spent about 2 hours with Maria as she started her first real shift as a supervisor. I got the feeling that she was anxious to see me go so that she could fly solo. It was a good sign as far as I was concerned. She promised to call me if she had any problems. She also asked me to come by for supper that evening. Armin and Martin mysteriously disappeared after supper, leaving Maria and me alone. I helped her clean up the dinner dishes, and we finally got to open up that bottle of wine. The conversation was awkward at first. With the exception of supper on Friday, everything between Maria and I had been strictly on a professional level. She looked a little dejected when I explained to her that our relationship could cause problems, but quickly mentioned that she felt confident that it was a minor thing that I would have no difficulty solving. Although I didn't bring it up, Maria must have felt some necessity to explain her marital status. She had been living with the boy's father in Tucson, and one day, he just disappeared. She stayed there for 3 years, but he never returned. Her brother was working in the Philadelphia area as a bricklayer and convinced her to move in with him and his family. Eventually, she got a place of her own and has been working ever since to make things better for the boys. She had never married. Just as I finished my tale of marital woe, the wine bottle was empty. Even though the conversational subject sucked, I still enjoyed my time with Maria. We had stretched the evening out over several hours, so the wine consumption was not a problem when it came time for me to drive home. Things were pretty normal for several days, both at work and in my private life. Billy came to see me one evening with the information from the American Legion post. We finished a few beers and tried to figure out what to do now that we had all the background stuff. A few beers turned out to be a few too many, and Grace ended up coming over to pick up her drunken husband. I was late for work the next morning, but nobody complained since I was the boss, and I was usually early. Friday morning brought another unexpected surprise. 3 of the company vice presidents showed up. They made a superficial walk through the store, but it all seemed a little on the phony side. Everything became much clearer when we broke for lunch. Apparently, there was a severe shortage of supermarket managers. At least it seemed that way to me. Before the meal was over, I had been offered a position as a regional supervisor, in charge of 6 stores within a 30-mile radius. The salary and benefits that went with the position were more than I could have ever imagined. Of course, I accepted. My second-in-command at the present store was also pleasantly surprised when I handed the entire operation over to him. I left him with only one request: don't mess with Maria. He gave me a wink, and I smiled, indicating that we were on the same page. Maria was naturally unhappy to see me leave the store, but pleased that I got the promotion. I took her out for a nice supper, which I guess you could say was our first real date. The boys were tickled to give us the night out together. It was also the first time that I got to see her dressed up and fixed up. She was a stunner. She seemed to take my promotion a little better when I told her that I would still be working and living in the immediate area. On the other hand, she was not pleased to hear that I had to go to Baltimore for 2 weeks of training. I had Sunday lunch with Billy and Grace. We celebrated my good fortune, and I tried my best not to drink. I planned to make the short drive to Maryland that evening so that I would be fresh for my first day of training. Billy wanted to know what I had planned to do about Cameron and Linda. I told him that it would have to wait until I finished and got settled in my new position. Maria and I talked on the phone every day, sometimes twice. I felt like a teenager. She asked me all about the training, and I made her tell me what was going on at her end. I always asked her about the boys. She seemed to appreciate the fact that I had shown interest in them. My new job came with a bunch of responsibilities that I had not anticipated. Community involvement was important. I was expected to join as many civic and social organizations as possible, including the local country club. I smiled when I was informed that my position with the company would assure me acceptance just about anywhere that I applied. Life was good. I went home the first weekend and saw Maria twice. I got my first kiss, but felt a little uncomfortable since I was technically still married. She questioned my uncertainty about the kiss and laughed a little at my explanation. She was teasing me a little, and I think that she enjoyed it. I know I did. The company rented a small office in one of the local business complexes and had it fully set up, including a secretary. They had done this before, and it showed. I was ready to start my full operation on the first day. On my desk, among other things, was my application for full membership at the Liberty Keys Country Club. All I had to do was sign it and pick up my membership card. I decided that would be the first order of business. I had on a new suit and was driving my new company car. Everything was great as I strutted into the club lobby until I saw Linda. She was standing with a few other ladies dressed in a cute little tennis outfit. I didn't even know that she played tennis. All of a sudden, the hurt and humiliation of what she had done to me came back. I lost my swagger and self-confidence just by seeing her. Without being obvious, I tried to walk past the group. It worked fine until I heard one of the ladies say, "Isn't that your husband who just walked in?" I didn't turn. There was a little mumbling going on as I handed the attendant my application form. He disappeared into a back room as I stood waiting for something unpleasant to happen. I knew that it was coming. It would have been nice to have a clever quip prepared, but my mind was blank. "George, what are you doing here? This is for members only, you know. You're not going to try and join again, are you?" I really wanted to embarrass her, in front of her new friends, but I could not bring myself to do it. "Hello, Linda. You are looking well. Nice outfit. Is it new? I didn't know that you played tennis." I was babbling. I wanted to be clever and witty, but it just wasn't there. The string of stupid statements was a good indication of how nervous I was. That in itself was embarrassing. "I am taking lessons, George. I always wanted to play tennis, but we could never afford it." All I could do was smile. "You really shouldn't be here, George. This is very uncomfortable for me. It is members only, you know." I was still smiling as the attendant returned to the counter. "Here you are, Mr. Templeton. Your membership card, locker key, and a copy of the club rules and regulations. Welcome to Liberty Keys County Club, sir." I nodded a silent thank you to him and turned to walk away. Linda was standing there with a confused look on her face. I grinned and said nothing more as I walked back through the club lobby. I wanted to turn as I walked out the door to see what she was doing, but resisted the urge. I smiled all the way back to the office. I took Maria to the Red Lobster for supper that evening. I had no intention of gloating, but I got great pleasure in telling her about my meeting with Linda earlier. There was no wine with the meal because my guest had to be at work by 11. We had a few small giggles concerning that situation. Maria promised to join me at the club for a late lunch Sunday after she got off her shift. I found myself hoping that we would run into Cameron and Linda. The rest of the week went smoothly until Friday. Helen, my new secretary, who was by now aware of my marital problems, was grinning as I walked into the office. On my desk was the local newspaper, and on the front page was a picture of Cameron Wright in handcuffs being placed into a plain black car. Cameron had not realized that the American Legion posts check on their applicants to ensure that no undeserving veterans sneak in. He had indeed retired from the Air Force, however. It was as a technical sergeant, not a major. The fact that he wore medals that had never been awarded to him was going to cause him more grief. They called it stolen valor, and it was not taken lightly. I had a strange feeling that Cameron Wright was going to rapidly lose face in his own hometown. Helen brought me a cup of coffee and told me that it was okay to smile. That did get her a grin. About an hour later, I got a call from the realtor informing me that the house had been sold. Closing was scheduled in 2 weeks. Just when I thought things couldn't get any better, my final divorce papers arrived in the mail. Good old Cameron had pulled some strings with some of his new friends and got the paperwork pushed through quicker than normal. I didn't think they were friends anymore. The day and the week were coming to a good end. Billy stopped by to see my new office, but what he really wanted was to tell me that Linda had moved in with him and Grace. He hadn't been home yet, so the only information that he had was what he got over the phone when Grace called him. He wasn't happy about his new house guest, but he was tickled pink at what happened. Billy didn't give me any resistance when I took him down to the local corner bar to celebrate, as long as I was buying. I called Maria at home before she left for work and gave her the good news, all of it. I think that she was as elated as I was. Billy came and got me out of bed Saturday. He was able to hold his liquor better than I was. We hit Shoney's for the breakfast buffet and some much-needed coffee. As we ate, I got an update on my ex-wife's situation. Her car had been repossessed. It seems that Cameron was more than willing to make the payments for Linda, but the checks were worthless. She never even knew it until they came and got it. Apparently, he took care of everything else the same way. I don't know how long he was expecting to get away with it, but he sure did snooker a lot of people before he got caught. Grace told Linda that she could stay for 1 week and 1 week only. Linda had no idea where she was going to go or what she was going to do. What little money she had when she left the marriage seemed to have disappeared also. Maria was fast asleep in bed by this time, but Armand and Martin were ready and willing to try out the Liberty Keys golf course. Maria was up when we got back to the house and gave us a good lecture about having fun without her. We ordered pizza and got a pay-per-view movie. Yes, life was good. Maria and I had a pleasant brunch at the county club Sunday morning. I was hoping to show her off in front of Linda and Cameron, but they never showed up. There were a few glances our way and I noticed a few comments being made, but overall things were great. It was the first of many brunches to come. Linda moved out of Billy and Grace's house before the end of the week to a small furnished apartment. Grace and Linda kept in touch, but they were not as close as they had been, even though they were sisters. Robert and Glenn came home for our wedding 3 months later. They gave me a good tease about my having to go out and get 2 new guys to replace them. The 4 boys hit it off, and that made Maria and I both happy. Robert and Glenn never mentioned Linda. I didn't purposely avoid speaking about her, but it just never seemed to come up. I don't know if they stopped to see her before they returned to school or not. Billy was my best man, but he was more of a witness than anything else, since it was just a civil ceremony. Maria stopped working before the wedding. I insisted that Armin and Martin also quit so that they could concentrate on their studies. None of them complained. Although I didn't make any money on the sale of the old house, I was still able to buy a new one with no problem. 2 months after the wedding, Maria and I were Christmas shopping at Target when we saw Linda. She was working at the customer service counter in the front of the store, wearing the Target uniform, khaki pants, and a red shirt. It looked as if she had lost weight. She looked up and noticed that Maria and I were looking her way. We watched as she turned and went into the office behind the counter. It was not our intent to embarrass her. She had been through enough. Maria and I left the store and did our shopping elsewhere from then on. Cameron Wright just disappeared. After he was arrested and charged, they just took him away and we never heard anything about him again. Robert and Glenn came home for Christmas at the new house. The big holiday surprise came when Linda arrived. Maria had invited her without telling me. It was an awkward situation for a few moments. At first I was annoyed, but then I realized that it was a very gracious and daring move on Maria's part. The confrontation was necessary for us all to have closure. I never forgave Linda for what she did, but just knowing that she was aware of what she lost made it better. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.